Hello, hello, guys. We
Hello,
all look
hello.
very exhausted right now.
I know, right? It's as if like we played the games at Emirates and Montjuic. Well, welcome to 30s, I guess.
Yeah, and I want to say it's also that I'm watching the Manchester United match on in parallel. It's so exhausting
Hate
to see
watching.
a
That's
team
Hate
that's
play
watching.
better.
it that
That
bad
this is
and
what a
still come
United
out
team
lucky, right? It's so
does to a
exhausting.
mofo. All right, you know what?
We on this stream we talk about Champions League games, so let's
Yeah,
keep it to
and
that.
champions. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna summon all the energy, whatever is left out of on the pitch after last night, and let's rally and do the spice. Emirates, Arsenal versus PSG, first semi-finals. Then, of course, we had Barca versus Inter at Montjuic. That's Barca's temporary home ground. But we'll start off with Arsenal. Uh, First things first. To me, it felt like Arsenal already looked like in a state where they were playing the finals simply because they overcame this, you know, big giant that is Real Madrid, and they look like, yeah, our best is behind us.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I disagree to some extent because this Real Madrid is not that good. Uh, they they
Of
didn't
course, it's
offer.
the
Yeah,
psyche that they have.
yeah. I feel like I don't think anybody went into this game thinking PSG are a pushover. Overall, I think I'll take a step back and acknowledge that all four teams, I had mentioned this in the previous stream as well, all four of these teams are capable of winning the Champions League. The odds are just so close among all four teams. I had said earlier, Barca 30%, 25%, PSG and Arsenal at 20% Inter. I might revise that to give 25% to all of the teams at this point because both legs are on a knife's edge. Specifically about
That's a
this
little
game,
optimistic after seeing Arsenal's performance
no,
at
no,
the
no,
Emirates, I
no,
would
no,
say.
no, no. I'll talk about that. So specifically, this first game, right? Arsenal, I have one word that can describe it. It's dominoes. Party got himself sent off or got himself that second yellow card stupidly in Real Madrid against Real Madrid. That in turn meant that he couldn't play this game. Declan Rice had to play deep. Merino had to play instead of Declan Rice, and we had to bring Trossard onto the team. So this whole thing changed the dynamic of how we could effectively play against a team like PSG. So you could clearly see that. Like the first 20 minutes, Arsenal were all over the place. PSG were all over them. We didn't have our version of Dembele, which is temporarily Mikel Merino. So we can't go over the press to Trossard. He's too small and he's not a great hold-up player. Brilliant technician. So a lot of the game, so Arsenal's game plan in general is, you either go like through the sides if you have like a passer like Partey who can progress the ball, you either do that, or the other tactical one is you just go over the press, go to Havertz, he's injured. Instead of that, Merino, brilliant at winning aerial duels, gets the second ball down. Declan Rice is there to get it and then drive forward. None of those were working in the first 20 minutes. So understandably, Arsenal were a little bit at sea. Dembele took a very, very low XG shot. The passing sequence was really good. They progressed the ball really well, but that shot itself was 0.09 XG. It was, you know, a very, like, I wouldn't say it's a well constructed goal, but it was kind of lucky that it went in. It's fine margins, right? 1 foot here or there,
I
it
know,
doesn't
right?
go in.
When he was
So,
playing for us, this mofo couldn't hit a stone into the water standing in
yeah,
front of a beach, and now all of a sudden he's taking shots from
yeah.
outside the box and whatnot.
Yeah, and he had an outstanding game. What a game by Dembele. I was actually sad to see him go off with an injury. I mean, from a personal point of view, I hope he doesn't come back for the second leg. But from like a more like meta football lover point of view, I would like to see him in the team. And PSG, they have their entire squad fit mostly. They were able to look at the people they were able to bring on from the bench, right? They were able to bring on Barcola from the bench, a bunch of these like really good players. And even though there's like this feel good story about them, they are a very expensively constructed squad. I look at Arsenal's bench. We had three players who have never played even a Premier League game, never started a Premier League game. They're academy players like Nathan Butler, Oedeji, Ismail Kabia. Have you even heard of these guys, right? Most, even people in the Arsenal sphere haven't heard of them.
Yeah, I think this
So-
is where PSG has this big advantage over the other three,
Right.
where they're
Yeah.
still, neck and neck in the title race. Like Uber Eats League, like they wrapped it up some 5-7 games ago, and they can afford to rest anybody that they want.
I mean,
Their
Arsenal can
players are
also
all
now do
fresh.
that because the league is over. And I think a real game changer for Arsenal having Thomas Partey back in the squad for the second leg. So I think if PSG had scored a second goal, it would have been done and dusted. But because we kept it to one goal, I'm still confident that we can at least take it to extra time. I don't know if we'll have the legs in us and bring on the game changers to win it all. It's still a possibility. It's, I would give us a 30-70 kind of chance to still progress through. Because what I saw after the first 25 minutes where Arsenal made a slight tactical adjustment and Declan Rice started running with the ball, MLS, Miles Lewis Kelly started driving the ball. These guys are, PSG are not like pushovers, but they can be beaten. They have obvious weaknesses that we are well placed to exploit. So if you look in the first 20 minutes, it would look like, oh man, if you only watch that, you'll think, oh man, PSG schooled Arsenal. But if you look at the overall game, the statistics around the game, Arsenal were more than a match. And again, I keep thinking about what a miracle it is, like given the squad absences that we are even at this state. Like even before in the beginning of the season, I thought, hey, if you reach the semifinals of the Champions League, that's good progression for this team. But to be in the Champions League, of having defeated Real Madrid and being in still a position to progress to the finals, and even, either of Barcelona or Inter, we can still beat them. I think that's huge progression for this team. So I'm still optimistic. I still give us a 30% chance to go through. Yeah,
All
I
right,
think
I want to
overall,
bring in Ajo now. We don't have a
Yeah.
PSG fan. Trust me, we look far and wide. So the closest we could find was Ajo. I mean,
Who is a
for no
big,
reason.
big
He's just
Luis Enrique fan. So I think it's just about
yeah, same here.
All right. So I want to provide the contrarian view. Right. Am I visible?
You are frozen,
You are
but I can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame. Give me a second. Stop camera. Start again. This is back now.
Sorry, I need to fix something.
Yeah, I think you should still go on.
Okay, I'll still
See you
continue
please.
speaking, right? I want to say I kind of agree with what Raj said, but I'm just going to provide a non-biased view of what I saw, right? Which is while PSG, it did seem like Arsenal wrenched back control in that game. It almost kind of was Luis Enrique's ploy, especially in the second half, where he was trying to kind of wait and wait so that he doesn't let Saka on one-on-ones or Saka free, and likewise on the other side Martinelli free, right? So he almost kind of tucked back Kvara and Due to wait for an opportunity to then break, which they did. They did have two great opportunities in the dying minutes. Had they buried those two opportunities, then we'd all be seated here talking of a 3-0 lead that they'll take into Paris, right? Which I think was a great ploy by Luis Enrique. So he almost kind of made the game slow. So if you look at Vitinha and what he was doing with the ball in the second half, he was almost inclined to not play passes up front, risky passes up front, which then meant recycling of possession to Arsenal, and then again them wrenching control. So he almost kind of played percentage passes, which was contrarian style to what they had adopted in the first half. So I want to say that it's a very smart operator knowing what it means to kind of take a lead to Paris. So that's my this thing. And I think talking of percentages and talking of statistics, I've never been the big fan of XGs. I will never be one, because I think a good striker, as someone who's seen Alan Shearer score from every possible angle, right, and an Henry score from every possible angle, XG means nothing. A good player with a good position should always score. So I think which he did.
Yeah, just to interject there, I think XG, I totally agree with you on that point. XG is kind of meaningless to judge an individual game.
Yeah.
It's more indicative of longer sample sizes. So go on.
Correct. And I think to also give Arsenal the credit, right? It's not like they dropped heads. But there were a few people. I think this is my biggest. In another podcast right at the beginning of the season, one of the things that it did seem apparent to me, and I'm sure it did seem apparent to the Arsenal fans too, is their ability to risk take. Right? In these tournament games, you almost always want someone to take risk. Otherwise, people would be yawning like what Chris did right now, right? Which is indicative of how Arsenal play, where it's okay to win a league, it's okay to kind of go on marauding runs in the league, but in tournament games, you need players with that oomph factor, right? Someone who can just wrench control. Like my immediate reference point, almost always, is probably the Henry in the 2006 campaign, where he was. I think that Real Madrid game is something that I'll never forget because I woke up in the morning and saw that game and I thought, wow, one guy against this Real Madrid might, right? Where he asked for the ball every single time and he was just magical that night. And or a Zidane like player, right? Someone who can just take control and play.
AJ, you just had to go all the way back to last night, yet you chose to go with an example from 2 decades ago.
Yeah, Yamal is okay. So I think he's just playing in a team where, against Inter, where they were equally matched, right? But that wasn't the case with the Arsenal Real Madrid game that I saw, because it was just sparkling with amazing players from Real Madrid, and yet Henry just took it upon himself to kind of put one over his mentor, Zidane. So I think that's where I really want to think Arsenal are Arsenal brave, right? I almost always come back to that question, and it seems like in the big games they're not. They try and do what they are being coached, but the instinct never takes over. And it's in games like this, tournament games, instincts will have to take over for you to then produce that moment of brilliance.
No, I have a slightly different take on this. I feel like Arsenal do really well when they are not the favorites in a game. Like we saw, I think whatever you saw over 2 legs against Real Madrid, that was them playing with that instinct or that bite, whatever you want to call it, right? Whereas PSG, who are a lot more, uh, equals to them, they don't know what their game plan is. I think it's very normal for that to happen when you head in as an underdog. Like you're mostly going to be out of ball, like you can be doing all your hungry pressing, hit on the counter. But when you all of a sudden see a lot more of the ball, when you're like you know toe to toe, man to man, there isn't an obvious difference, and the intensity, well, it's only natural to drop. You can afford to be little more complacent than when you're trying to slay a giant. That's what I saw based on both how Arsenal played as well as how the atmosphere was, which, by the way, didn't do any favors to Arsenal.
Just
Yeah.
flattened out.
Yeah. I think that first goal really flattened the atmosphere. And I think, again, it's also a function of, like the Emirates was always been known as the library and things like that, right? So there's something that it's a club, the club itself also is learning on how to generate a better atmosphere and, make it more conducive. Anyway, you have the away fans coming in, they are always going at an advantage with like the drums and stuff. And PSG have like these ultras, which UK football doesn't really have to the same extent like the other European clubs do. Regarding the, this whole like thought about like being brave, I feel that's to me it's a little bit overblown in my opinion. I feel like the game plan that Arteta puts together, especially against the big sides, it's almost always solid, and things have been coming together, like trashing of City 5-1, beating Real Madrid, beating Sporting 5-1. So it's something that's more bankable, is to have like a system in place and work to the strengths of that system. And again, I keep reminding everyone that this isn't Arsenal. Like, there are so many gaps in this first team, not just because of injury, but also because of recruitment that they've deferred. So I think that's front and center with like Berta and the board, that they know what they want in the next window. Yeah, I think the last couple of things that I want to talk about is like in these situations, like who the leaders of the team are, and Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, Saliba, and Miles Lewis Kelly, and even to some extent Martinelli. They were the ones who were like, let's make something happen. We are not walking out of this game without anything. They did their best to make it happen. And I'm sad to say, like, now it should be apparent to everyone that Odegaard is just not on it. And I'm not making a hater comment here. I feel like
Alexa, play How Fast the Night Changes.
No. Given the drop in his performances over the past 2 seasons, he's been like in our player of the year, and he's had so many goals and assists. I really feel that it won't surprise me in summer to see an announcement that he's had surgery to fix some issue or something like that, because clearly his physical levels have dropped.
At least, if not for the actual what do you call it, health betterment, at least they should do it for the PR betterment. His PR is just dropping by the minute.
Yeah, and he's hilariously one-footed for sure, but he's also like, there is something psychologically up where he seems to look for the safer option now and lets others take the lead, which I don't expect from a captain. And it's not him. We know he's capable of much more. And I think he will be the first to say that, hey, I am not at my very best. So it'll be interesting to see how we address that going forward. So yeah, all to play for in the second leg. I still feel like if we don't rush the first few minutes of the game, just hold on, take control, and play our usual game, which we'll be able to do better with Partey and Rice playing ahead. I think we are going to give PSG a nice little fight, and it's going to be a really, really exciting encounter.
Yeah, and I was just going to say this, right, that it's going to be a tight game for sure. I don't know if it's time for us to predict, but one of the things that I'm most looking forward to, right, is how mature this PSG midfield is, right? This is the time of reckoning, and
yep.
Seeing what I've seen of Fabian Ruiz, my goodness, we were talking I think we have been talking internally about the model with which we want to replace Joel Linton, right? Sheer brute strength with someone who has that strength, but also has that guile, intelligence, and ability to make a pass, which Tonali and Bruno have, right? Someone like Fabian Ruiz, man, seriously, like it almost kind of, I don't remember him losing the ball yesterday or day before, right? Despite all of the pressure that Arsenal put on him. 2 people, 3 people zeroing in on him in like 2-3 seconds. His judgment and his decision making is spot on, and I think he is also one of the primal reasons people talk about Pedri, and of course he has the Barcelona shine to attach to him. Fabian Ruiz was exceptional during the Euro campaign, and I think he was exceptional. The day before also. I think will be one to look for in terms of how mature this midfield is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one last comment before we move on is this was a this is the highest level of football. Like, make no doubt about it. Both Arteta and Luis Enrique are excellent coaches. They're at the top of their games. They have squads that can play to the strengths and play exactly to the plan that they want to play to. So it was a delight to watch. And again, no shame in any of the teams winning the Champions League. All 4 are excellently coached. Moving on, we should move on to the other exciting
Rohit, the
game
Oscar
that we had.
Who was, giving a shout out to his fellow nominees who didn't win the match. Same energy from you. Speaking of,
I have some questions, dude.
I have a lot of questions.
My first question is Yamal more of Messi or a Neymar?
Okay,
Chris, you want to answer it or you want
I
me
have an
to kind
opinion.
of...
I have an opinion on this.
Yeah, me
I
too.
have a theory on this as well. But taking a step back, 3-3, I mean, credit to Hansi Flick. He has done so many things right. But this mentality, especially knowing how Barca's psyche is in these crucial knockout games in the UCL, what he has managed to do with the team, I think that will be his legacy more than any trophies that he ends up winning. Lamine Yamal, well, he's just a byproduct of that. Perfectly sums up everything nice to say about Hansi Flick, right? And you see Lamine, and it's very hard not to make the Messi comparison, right? Like left foot cuts inside, and 17-year-old prodigy. We have seen all of that before, but there is also an element of Neymarism to the way he plays because like he's way too silky for somebody who's a Spanish player, right? With all due respect
He's
to the
yeah,
Iniestas and David Silvas,
he's
this
bulked up.
flair, it's
He's
Brazilian
bulked up
flair.
8 kilos since last year.
Wow.
Watch him go on another 8 kilos and then another 8 kilos. So by the time he gets to mid 70s or lower 80s, we are talking of serious, serious
Well, I
player
hope his
at
center of
the top
gravity
of his
still
level.
remains the same.
Good.
I don't know much physics. But Rohit, to answer your question, I think it's very tricky. Like he has the flair of Neymar, but because he is from La Masia, he has been ingrained. Hey, passing is how it works. Like if he were more selfish, you'd be comparing him to a Neymar, but he is not. We talked about this before this tie as well. He has this weird fetish for giving these extraordinary assists more than going and scoring goals himself. Ajay rightly brought up this outside the foot. I don't know. It's not
Trivelas.
exact. Yeah, yeah, that one. The pass that he has been trying to make that lot more frequently, try to get that assist, and I think he has been getting better. Uh, like anything that you have to say about him, like it's hard not to sound poetic or exaggerating of what he does, right? But then again, he has the flair of Neymar, but the intelligence and the style of Messi that Messi picked up from La Masia. So
Yeah.
this
We
is
let
like a beast of a player that we are talking about. Yeah,
yeah, we let the Barca fans speak. I want Aja to talk about a little bit more about what did you think of Inter?
unbiased.
Seriously. Again, Simeone, my friend, not Simeone, Inzaghi,
Zaghi.
right? I almost should have called Simeone. It's a faux pas in that regard. But I want to say
Yeah,
what
we put 3 past Simeone's team too, so you won't be far off.
yeah, I want to say if only Inter had better players. All right. Some of these players that played yesterday are all in their 30s, and if they had, I want to say some of the players that who else is like I'm again not that Newcastle has great talent, right? But if they had a Gordon, Isak, Tonali, Bruno playing in that system, coached by Inzaghi, they would have come out with a lot more results than a lot more effective result than what they did yesterday. Because sometimes I think when I look at Mkhitaryan or what do you call it, Turan's judgment and pace to get to things and how slow they were, I really wanted to say it's a
Wasn't
great
I supposed
strategy.
to be the reactionary fan in this stream?
No. I think it's not about being reactionary. I'm just saying that their plan was so well constructed in setting traps for for Barcelona, especially with down Kubarsi's right. So they then kind of stretch the pitch that way and almost blindside you on the other side, right? So I'm just thinking switch the two forwards that Inter had with Isak and Gordon. You almost have the guile, the ability to kind of stretch the pitch and then flip flop it the other side, because Barcelona's defense, especially in terms of in transitions, is as bad as things come when it comes to big teams. right? They're so kind of gullible all over the pitch when it comes to defensive transitions. So I think that's where they almost missed a trick. But regardless of it, the set pieces, which I think will be a huge ploy that Arsenal will deploy in the return leg in Paris, because Paris are also there for the taking in terms of their height and sizes and whatnot, right? It's
Almost scored.
yeah.
Offside.
Yeah, Jover was already kind of up there celebrating before somebody had to remind that there's this little thing called offside. But yeah, sure. But yeah, I think, to be honest, I think that's where Inter was so sharp in their setup. They kind of soaked in pressure. I think back in San Siro, they will do it, and they will do it multifold. Right, their ability to kind of soak pressure and the rigor with which they do man marking is so wonderful. So I think that's where I want to say, Barcelona will give a proper run for Inter's money. I think it will be very, very difficult to break Inter at home. Right.
You say that, but I was actually quite surprised to see Bayern score 2 past them at home as well. But I do agree. I feel like it's just like both sides of the Champions League semifinals are like one really disciplined defensive team against like a team filled with maverick attackers. So both the ties are kind of like that. And set pieces are, Barcelona is also clearly like a weak point. Has this been a weakness all
Yes,
season?
I think yesterday it has been a weakness since I started watching the club. Rohit, I cannot remember.
You should
Actually, there
hire
was this
Jover, Chris, just for a midterm
that
or
Arsenal
short-term
guy.
contract.
I
As
know,
soon as
right?
he's done with the Paris this thing, you just ask him
Yeah.
to take a flight over to Milan, and then you can do
Now he'll claim that Jover also has Barcelona DNA or something.
Sure,
Because
why
everyone has
not?
Barcelona DNA, right?
Arteta, mark my words, gentlemen, it's happening sooner than later. But yeah, Barca, I think yesterday
Stop
was
disrespecting Flick, my friend.
Oh, I think just on Flick, before you go on, Chris, sorry, I didn't want it to be a monologue, but that German mentality of absolutely zoning out from whatever the crowd reaction is, because the crowd got really volatile when Inter took the lead. But that German mentality to kind of absolutely just shut everything down, be objective focused, is so special, right? They almost always win in games where they shouldn't, right? Where there's so much of pressure, there's so much of volatility in the crowd. German teams almost always kind of shut it out, right? They play with that that intensity, that single-mindedness to win. I think that's what he's brought onto this.
This is exactly what I was saying at the beginning as well, right? So I don't really care if we win trophies or not, because we had to squash the demons of the past. Like, we had your freaking club legend Jordi Alba breaking down in tears at halftime when playing against Liverpool. How do you do that? Like, you have a 3-goal advantage. Liverpool probably scored 1 at the time, I guess. So from there,
another thing with this Barcelona thing that you're talking about, right? When you're talking about mentality, right? all of these kids we call players, right? They've all played together from a very young age. So it's almost an extension of a school playground mentality, right? In terms of how they play, how they kind of.
I mean, so that's just La Masia for you, right? That has always been the case. But the difference is this team hasn't really tasted defeats like the ones the previous generation had at Rome or Anfield, or even Juventus. After that, 6-1 PSG comeback, we went on to lose to Juventus 3-0. That is
or the
not
Inter one in 2009. Had to bring it against the Mourinho masterclass.
I mean, you have a point, because those were the same players who played like even 2017 or 2018, right? So these kids, they are fearless, and also because they don't know,
they don't carry
who
the
can
baggage.
do that. Yeah, they don't have the baggage and trauma. Exactly.
Yeah.
So they are a lot more free to play. And set pieces, yes, it has been a weakness. And I'm not surprised, because to play the flick way, you have to make certain sacrifices. One of them being our captain, Ronald Araujo, who's easily our best aerial defender, right? Him along with Christensen, we would have a lot more stability. But Christensen came on yesterday for what was only his second match of the season. He literally played the first league match, and he was sidelined with, I believe, an ACL injury for 8 months, and he came on only yesterday. So between
8 months after an
Kubarsi,
ACL is actually incredibly fast.
yeah. Thanks. I
Ajay
hope
and I
I'm
are
not
smiling
getting
because we know from personal experience.
I have no ligaments left in my knees to even cry.
That's a shame. Sorry to hear that. People over 30 for you.
No, but
No,
one
they
thing
were
before Rohit goes, right? Maybe it's a question for both of you. I found Pedri's position really weird yesterday, right? In the sense that he was playing down I want to say the inside left channel, when I think there's a lot more space on the other side. I thought they were going to capitalize, on Mkhitaryan's side, right? And somehow they seemed insistent on leaving Yamal just do his thing and not have any players around him.
Yeah, you really can't complain. Like,
No,
especially yesterday, right?
no, but when he scores, it's okay. But there's a lot more opportunity for you to like really put pressure on that side, right? You could have made more. I want to say created more clear chances by just switching Pedri to this side. I don't know what you guys thought.
I think you might have a point, and it's because we don't have Balde bombarding that left wing, right? He's our first choice left back, and he's really, really special. Like, closest thing we have to Jordi Alba with that electric sprinting, overlapping with your midfielder on the left side and whatnot. Gerard Martin is not the guy for you. He had more defensive stability. He can't make those marauding runs. So Barca have almost been handicapped the last few games because you don't have Balde in the team. So you're kind of forced to rely more on Lamine Yamal as if it were possible. So if Balde were on the pitch, I think it would have been a lot more different.
Rohit, I don't want to talk anymore. I'll let you speak because you've been itching.
No. I only smile every time you mention Mkhitaryan because he played for us and I don't remember him playing for us. There was a weird swap deal that we did with
Alexis
Man United where we
Sanchez
sent
and
Alexis
Mkhitaryan.
Sanchez, who apparently went to United and immediately called his agent and said, "Can we cancel this transfer? I want to come back." But I don't have any comments on your question about Pedri. I wish I had watched the game as closely as I would have liked. But I think last question I have for Chris is when will
I feel like you're one of
Barcelona's
those players in a press conference.
luck playing that high line run out?
I think this question is about 6 months, late at this point, right? Because we had been asking that all season. Now you know that that's what gets the results. And I also think it's little unfair for the players who have really taken to Flick's system when you say when the luck will run out, right? Like, you can't have like 150 marginal offside calls in a season. That just doesn't happen, right? Like, the second team with most offside in their favor, they're not even in triple digits as far as
78. Yeah.
and is it Tottenham by chance? At some point it was Tottenham.
I have to check.
Still be that. Barca has like nearly, if not more than twice the number of offsides, right? You don't get there without discipline. I think calling it lucky is just a big disservice to what Flick and his assistant has achieved. The important question, or rather the question in the minds of Barca fans is, will we take this if we didn't have trophies to back that up? Thankfully, we already have one in the bag in Copa del Rey, our domestic cup competition and against Real Madrid too. And we are still pretty much in the driver's seat to win the league. We are 4 points ahead of Real Madrid with an El Clasico to play. Even if Real Madrid end up winning, it's still
Be
in
1
our
point.
control, right?
Yeah.
So, and Champions League, we were never supposed to be same as Arsenal, right? Like, given where the team started out, we were never supposed to be this far out. But given everything that has happened, the change in mentality that Aja was alluding to the beginning, Flick has earned our trust. Even if we go trophyless, we don't care if we play the high line, because he has managed to turn the careers around for so many people like Rafinha. Imagine going from an outcast who was going to be sent to China and then
To
becoming
Newcastle,
the
by the way,
front runner.
45 million is
Oh,
the
really?
bid.
Wow.
Yeah, just hoping it
Imagine
was-
what a steal that would have been for you people. And then being the front runner to Ballon d'Or, right? So you have to give credit to Flick and trust that this high line is probably the best way to get the best out of this current crop of players. And eventually, like at this point, trophies just feel like the byproduct, right? Everybody's having fun. The Oles are back in our stadium after what, 10 years? Since 2015, we haven't seen that. And for neutrals, Barca is hands down the most entertaining club to watch, and by a mile. And like, it's not really
PSG
comfortable
also,
for
but
us.
it's a disservice to PSG. But yeah, sure.
Well, okay, if you say so.
Yeah. I think if I had to boil
No,
down,
but
like,
nobody
you know,
wants to watch Liga One. That's the thing, Aja.
that's true. Yeah. If I had to, like, make a very, very crude comparison, I feel like both teams, the styles are, chess players
Contrast.
against basketball players. Like basketball is very end to end, like high energy. Reminds me of very like
That's
this
a very fair
Barcelona against
comparison.
this. I don't think this Barcelona played Liverpool yet, right? I would love to see
That would
this.
have been fun.
I would
Yeah.
love to see that game. Hopefully, we'll get to
Mhm.
see it in the next season in the Champions League, in the league stages. And Arsenal have already played Inter, so yeah, like marginal win on a penalty for Inter again. But I think it was a pretty evenly matched game. So chess players against basketball. So yeah,
Yeah.
all to play for in the next leg.
I'm
Really
gonna
exciting
register
time.
one complaint against Flick, so there is public record of it. I already spoken about this in my 1 minute reviews. But well, I don't expect a lot of people to follow La Liga. I think he's not fast enough with his reactions when he makes those substitutions. So because of the nature of the way this Barca side plays, your players tire out between. I see Ejo, shaking his head. He has to, take it up with me another time. He delays the substitutions quite a bit. Even in El Clasico, which we somehow managed to walk away with a trophy, uh, where he had Araujo and somebody else waiting in the sidelines for 10 whole minutes before choosing to make the substitution. By that point, Real Madrid had completely turned the tie around and his substitutions were also useless. I'm sure he has his reasons, but this is not the first time it's happening. It's very evident when the likes of Pedri or Dani Olmo, they don't have the gas in the tank to go beyond 60 or 70, but he doesn't bring on people until it's, just a few minutes late. But the opposition, they seem to always pounce on it. We saw this with Inter yesterday. We saw it in the CDR finals. Now that it's happening in big games, hopefully there is more attention to
Yeah,
it,
so
and this is something that he
two things. I don't think he trusts the bench as much as you think you
probably.
The second thing
Yeah,
is
you-
almost always, whenever you're playing with a young side, you want them to make mistakes, especially when they're this young, right? I think Arsenal did it, Arteta did it with Saka and Martinelli
Yep.
for a while, right? You
I was
want them
just
to
going to
make
say that.
mistakes and then learn and then pick up. So I think
maybe
it's
not in the UCL semi-finals, Aja.
No, but both things are true because even Arteta waited until the 82nd minute to make his first change. It's
correct.
just look at the people on the bench. It's just also sometimes lack of choices, and also game state. It takes time for players to come in and
Correct, exactly that.
like understand the rhythm of the game. So I totally get it.
All right, predictions before we wrap up. First game.
Which one?
Oof. Inter
First game
versus
is the
Barca's first, right?
Barcelona. Yeah, Inter
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
3-1 to
I will
Barca.
make it. I think it will be 2-2 in regulation time, and Barcelona will edge out 3-2 in extra time.
You just stole my words. I was going to go with the same prediction in, I want to say, in 90, and the same prediction across the game. But I was going to say 2-2, 2-2 in regulation time, 3-all in this thing, and then it goes to penalty. Just so that I have to be different than Rohit.
I mean, you don't have to be. That's fine. I think
Great
Barca's
minds think alike, Ajo. Great minds think alike.
Absolutely, sir.
PL fanboys think alike. Always underestimating. I think Barca's biggest opponents are themselves. So if they can stay away from, whatever they do to themselves, 3-1 is on the cards for me. All right, moving on to the next game.
Rohit,
I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think it'll be 2-2 in Paris. The stadium will just lit up because I think both teams will turn up. So I think it'll be PSG will take the lead 2-1, and then Arsenal come back and give them nervy last 10 minutes.
That's oddly specific.
I'm going to go with I'm actually going to go with 2-1 regulation time win for Arsenal, and PSG getting through on penalties.
Lovely. What a heartbreak it will be for you, but I hope it isn't the case, because Arsenal would have completely deserved to be in the final.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 1-0 to Arsenal,
and it'll still go to
same. Yeah, extra time and PSG will win it.
It'll be that close.
Counter Ousmane Dembélé burying the ghost of his past.
I mean, the whole thing hinges on whether Ousmane Dembélé is fit to play or not. If he is not playing and we play with Partey, that'll be a good advantage to us.
Yeah, and talking of Champions League, I think it almost does seem like it's going to be Manchester United versus Tottenham. You'll have one of them creep into the Champions League spots for the next season, which
6 PL teams
seems very unfair given how their seasons have panned out. But hey, that's how Europe rolls and dice.
Yeah,
but imagine the scenes if Bodo Glimt run it back. I don't know. I haven't seen the scores, so
it's 2-0 to Tottenham, 3-0 away at Athletic Bilbao with Manchester United. They completely dominated in the first 20 minutes, but one red card. They
were offended by your I'm sleepy because I'm watching United comment. Anyway, fun chat, gentlemen. We'll be back next week to see which of our predictions come true. All right.
Cheers. Bye-bye.